All right, T's Weird Week News. We're live here. Hey everyone, I'm T. Krulos.
And I'm Heidi Erickson. How's it going, T?
It's going good. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, there. I was gonna say I thought I heard a fan, but it's the sound is good now.
No, we're good.
Um, so we started this episode off by talking about some weird travels, strange travels. So I was just curious, Heidi, what you would put on your list of weird travels as far as
Ah,
places you've been or places you want to go, anything like that.
okay. Yeah, totally. Okay. I would say, and I still maintain that Wisconsin is the weirdest place I've ever been. It's just, there's something about it. Maybe it's all the cheese. I don't know. It's just very strange. Like there's, right?
Here-
Fun facts. I have lived in all of those places. Shocking, I know, but it's true.
Wisconsin, Scotland, or Florida is the banner that we bust out when we talk about these places, which we seem to do a lot.
We do seem to do that a lot. Um, I mean, like I have been like in the cypress swamps, and those places are very strange and unusual just because they're strange and unusual. Living in Scotland and Great Britain, if you are anybody who's into weird shit at all, you should go there because everyone there believes in ghosts. Everyone believes in fairies. There's castles all over the place. Like every single place has a story about like some ghost that hang themselves from the battlements or whatever. So definitely that is cool. Um, Most of the old South in America is pretty weird and dark. I think I'd really like to go to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. That seems weird.
Yeah.
The Driftless area of Wisconsin. I don't know if you spent a lot of time out there. I've never like spent a bunch of time in the Driftless, but every time I go through it, it just has this very like eerie feeling to it. I definitely would want to check that out. There's big stretches of what Highway 69. I know, and then it was Highway 666. And
Huh.
people used to take it because it was Highway 666. But then another highway came through and made that part of the road obsolete. And so now it sits in the desert, just like getting cracked in the heat with like lizards crawling over it and shit. And there's supposed to be this flaming 18 wheeler that rolls down it in the middle of the night. I'd kind of like to check that out. I think that'd be neat. There's a place in Wisconsin called Witches Road, which I think I should definitely go to there in like a Cadillac convertible
Yeah.
and just drive through playing Santos and Johnny. Doesn't that sound great? Um, I don't know, man. I definitely like I dig the dark tourism thing. I think part of it's kind of tacky because a lot of times it's about like going to people's cultural sites, like their cemeteries and stuff, and taking photographs and gawking and stealing great great granddad's foot bone or whatever, and that's gross. But there's also like places that are just supposed to be like that ossuary in I think it's in Romania. It's very, very famous where they took all these people who had died of the plague and they had no place left to bury the bodies. So they took all the bones of all of these people and turned it into this cathedral. So they've got like giant chandeliers that like have a dozen skulls on them and their spines are like the twisty parts and like you just go from room to room to room and all the walls are just festooned in this beautiful Baroque decoration that's all made of human bones. That would be fucking cool. I would go to that.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds badass. Uh,
Right?
I think, this is one of the weirdest places I've been, and, maybe I
Oh.
should bust out this banner again. This is a place in Wisconsin that I visited this last weekend. I hadn't been there since I was a kid, but yes, the House on the Rock
I
in
saw
Spring
you post
Green,
that.
Wisconsin. My
Mhm.
dad's birthday is coming up, so he wanted to go out there and check out the House on the Rock, which is just the craziest place I can think of. It's just
Yeah.
so it's like a fever dream.
Oh, it's
And
wonderful.
you can just imagine this guy when he was building this place. He didn't have internet, he probably didn't have TV. So
Right.
he sat around all day like building weird shit and making this
Yeah.
crazy like dreamland of a place that
Yeah.
goes on forever.
Yeah. And when he
And
got there, it was just a big rock. And he was like, I'm going to build a giant ridiculous
Yeah.
thing here. Yep. My partner actually took me there for the first time a couple of months ago, and it was everything
Yeah.
that I wanted it to be. Plus, it had that thing that places from like the 60s have, where it still smelled a little bit like moldy carpet and cigarette smoke,
Yeah. Yeah.
which makes that extra surrealness. I love that. I saw recently some local ghost hunters went up to the novitiate. I don't know if I told you about the novitiate ever. The
Mm.
novitiate is in Gresham, Wisconsin, on what used to be. It was originally like 100 years ago. It's one of the oldest building sites in the city in the state of Wisconsin. It was a novitiate, which was a place where monks went to learn how to be monks. So it was this great big stone building, and then it changed hands a couple of times. And then in the 1970s, a group of indigenous people took over the place and declared it their sovereign land and that they weren't giving it back. And of course, that ended about how you'd expect it would. And then for a long time, it sat abandoned, and people were alleged to have done, the satanic rituals, that old chestnut, all that kind of stuff,
Mm.
opening the portals to hell or whatever, like you do. And then someone, like after it sat abandoned, purchased it and was going to turn it into a bed and breakfast because, of course, they were. Why would you not turn it into a bed and breakfast? And they abandoned the project. It never took place. There's all kinds of rumors about why it didn't go down, but apparently the current owners actually opened it up for a ghost hunt recently, um, which is great. It makes me feel like I wasted my time trespassing all those times when I was a kid. But they're said to see like lights floating through the forest and robed figures like walking through the tumble down halls, and screams like echoing through the woods in the middle of the night. You know, wholesome family fun is that would be a cool place to go to. I think that would be pretty neat. There's so much stuff in Wisconsin to do that I don't think I'd even need to leave the state to have a really great
Oh
creepy
yeah,
trip.
yeah. I mean, this isn't even. There's so many places like even the Apostle Islands up
Hmm.
in the very northernmost part of the state near
Hmm.
Lake Superior. There's a lot of folklore and legends about the Apostle Islands, and so you
Ooh,
could really spend probably an entire summer cruising around the
yeah.
state, checking stuff out.
Dude, let's go to the Apostle Islands. That sounds dope. Let's like find some little haunted island.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the
Great
islands
idea,
is
T. I'm in.
one of the islands is called Devil's Island,
Sure.
because when the waves crash against the cave on the island, it makes this like roaring sound that sounds like
Cool.
a demon. It's pretty
And
badass.
also the devil is where that's where he has his summer home. Everybody knows that. That's great. I'm super fucking in, dude. Like I feel like all those old lighthouses like have got to be like all the old ones that sit on the shores of the lake. Madeline Island is magic. What is Madeline Island,
Uh,
Facebook user?
that is one of the Apostle Islands. Um, there's about, I want to say, somewhere between 12 and 20 islands that make up the
Oh.
Apostle Islands, and Madeline Island, I believe, is the biggest one.
Oh, okay. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I definitely there's got to be all kinds of ghost stories up there. That like I think a thing that people don't realize about the Great Lakes is they're fucking mean. They're mean. The weather is really bad. Like if you become a sailor on the Great Lakes, you can go to any port in any ocean anywhere in the world, and they will hire you sight unseen because like it's so hard to be a sailor on those lakes, and it's hard to live in those places up on the islands and like up on the UP because winters are fucking brutal. They're
Yeah.
super hard, and like the relationship that settlers had with the indigenous people there was, shall we say, strained, and like all kinds of things, even like the Paper Valley. Like you don't think about places like Oshkosh and Appleton as being terribly interesting, but the lake that those towns share, that they share together, is called Butamore. Butamore means hill of the dead. Lake
Wow.
Butamore. And the reason it's called Hill of the Dead is because the Fox Indians that lived there didn't really want to do any business with any of the settler folks that were around. And they lived in towns that were built on the lake. The only way to get in or out of them was by canoe. So one day, a bunch of French soldiers, pretending to be fur traders, sailed right into these fort towns that the Fox Indians had built. And when they pulled back the tops of the canoes, it was filled with soldiers, and they killed everybody. And then to add insult to injury, they burnt the fort towns down. And as soon as it stopped smoldering, they built the town of Butte des Morts right on top of it. You don't think that place is fucking haunted? So haunted. So haunted. Because, yeah, duh, yeah, it's Hill of the Dead. So, I mean, that's a mere hour and a half drive from here. Could really stay entertained forever.
That's good. Lots of options for stuff to do. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, we are.
Let's talk about an interesting road trip that was in the news over the last weekend.
Love it.
This is the second week in a row where we are once again speaking about the Moorish sovereign citizens.
Okay.
Apparently, there was a bunch of them in Wakefield, Massachusetts. That's a suburb of Boston. This was July 3rd, by the way, as the 4th of July weekend was in full swing. Police did a vehicle stop. That's when 11 heavily armed men fled into the nearby woods and engaged in a standoff with the police.
Wait, were all 11 of these guys in one car? Did the cops stop them and they all rolled out like clowns?
I think it was a couple of vehicles. It must have been, right? Or
Yeah,
I guess it could have been like a army transport vehicle.
Okay.
During the standoff, these sovereign citizens said they did not recognize the police and their laws. They said that they were on their way to a training exercise in Rhode Island, and that the name of their group was the Moorish American Arms. And so they arrested all 11. 2 of them refused to identify themselves, but they were all arrested for unlawful possession of firearms and also, unlawful possession of ammo and wearing protective armor during a crime, stuff like that.
An illegal amount of audacity, just like superfluous amounts of being that bitch. Okay, so the thing I do like about the Moorish sovereign citizens is how I do appreciate that when the authorities stop them, they're like, "You're not my dad," and like, fuck you, and they just leave, because like it really does take some audacity. Okay, okay. So the whole thing with the Moorish sovereign citizens is that there was a treaty with Algeria?
With Morocco.
Morocco.
Yeah.
Morocco.
That's my understanding. And like I was telling you before we started the show, I definitely want to do a deep dive and try to read more, find more information on what their beliefs actually are, because I'm still a little bit confused as to what their theory is here.
If you guys know any Moorish sovereign citizens, you should definitely give them our digis, because we want to have a beer with those dudes post haste. Also, I think that really we should find out what the Moroccan national anthem is, because I have a feeling that these guys are going to pop up again. And I'd like to have a little intro jingle for them, a little, a little something festive, a little something you can dance to. I think that's a great idea. Okay, well, cool. Good job. I'm surprised that's not happening in Wisconsin yet, because Wisconsin is filled with weirdness and weird things that happen that are weird all the time. I know in the news this week there was some Wisconsin weirdness that was going on. They were talking about the Slender Man case again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Which you said you actually sat in on some of that courtroom time when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was 2014 is when that case happened. And that was right as I was, finishing up my book, Monster Hunters. And so this case, of course, grabbed my attention because it was crazy and sensational. My parents were living in Waukesha at the time, so it was kind of close to where they live.
Right.
And I was really fascinated with the whole, like, do monsters exist or don't they? And how do people interpret that? So I checked the courthouse and I found when they were having a hearing, and I actually sat in on a couple of court appearances
That's wild.
that the Slender Man, uh, they were girls at the time who had stabbed their friend and classmate.
Right, and
So
I think they were 11. Were they 11?
12 and 13, I think.
Okay.
And now, the reason this is topical is that Anissa Wire, who was one of those girls, is now 19.
Mhm.
And she hasn't been released yet, but if they can present a release plan, they will let her out of the mental health facility that she's been
Sure.
in since 2014.
Sure.
And she'll be able, to be a part of the world again.
Right. Now you said that this girl, because okay, so there's two girls in the Slender Man case,
Yeah, the other
and
was Morgan Geyser, was kind of
right,
seen as the mastermind of that
right,
incident.
because this girl we're talking about now, they presented her in the media anyway as maybe being I don't want to say that maybe she had a cognitive disability, but definitely she seemed in the thrall of this more of Morgan, where
Yeah.
she was like she believed what Morgan told her and she was going to do whatever Morgan told her to do. I thought in seeing her speak, which we only did briefly because most of the testimony wasn't broadcast, that she seemed like she was afraid of this other girl, and that she was just doing whatever she told her. Morgan is the one who was like Slender Man, and Slender Man, in case y'all don't remember, was a character from a creepy pasta at the time. He's since become a
Right.
video game character, and kind of this character like in the zeitgeist or whatever, thanks in no small part to this attempted murder because the girl survived. They stabbed her
Mm-hmm.
19 times, and she
Yeah.
crawled out of the woods and got help and survived. I
Yeah,
think it
a bicyclist found her on
right,
the bike path and was able to help her and call
right.
911.
I think if I remember correctly, they even said that this young girl, because she believed that these girls were her friends,
Yeah.
um, actually like said that she forgave the girls and that like it was going to be okay and like she was going to get better and like she I don't know she understood it. But that girl too was only like 12 or 13 years old. But
Yes.
Morgan the entire time never wavered in like her total dedication to the idea that this character Slender Man had wanted to have her prove that she was ready to be taken away by him and that that was what she needed to do was to murder this girl who was her friend. And the
Yeah.
whole time she was like, whatever, I don't care what happens to me because Slender Man is coming to rescue me because I did what he told me to do. Right?
Yeah, they were going to sacrifice her, and then they had this belief that they were going to walk to a national state park that was like 40 or 50 miles away, that they were going to make this long walk up there, and then they would be part of Slender Man's kingdom because that's where he
Right.
lived, and they would sort of be welcomed in once they arrived.
What was Slender did they say what Slender Man's kingdom was like? Is it like low APR loans and a Denny's on every corner, or was it something slightly more My
uh,
Little Pony? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think it was sort of portrayed as being like a mystical but kind of creepy forest kingdom where you would sort of, Narnia style go through this secret
sure,
entrance and then you would be inside this magical realm
sure,
that exists, here on Earth, but you can only get in if you like know the secret knock after
right,
you get Slender Man's approval.
right,
And this is why this, I think that this other girl was so afraid and went along with it was, uh, Morgan was telling them that if they didn't do this, and Slender Man was going to kill them if they wouldn't make the sacrifice, or that their families would be killed if she
sure,
didn't participate.
sure.
So,
Okay, so I looked a little bit into the Slender Man, like what Slender Man was and like the original creepy pasta that Slender Man came from. Because
mm,
I'm curious about this. Like this was an idea that came from the internet, and many weird things have been inspired by popular fiction. Because I think especially in America, because it doesn't happen as much in other countries.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that's not a thing that happens as much in other countries. I think it's because American culture is real weird and like unmoored, because the country's only 200 and some odd years old. We don't have like a unifying mythology that like keeps us all. America's huge. America is huge. The boogeyman in Florida is completely different than the boogeyman in New Jersey or the boogeyman in parts of Oregon or California. So I think that like the internet and pop culture is our shared mythology. Um, and Americans as a whole don't have a super good grip on reality. That's just we're
Yeah.
just not good at it. We're just not good at reality. We're kind of like really good at cheeseburgers and blowing shit up, not so good at being moored to reality. Um, but I do think that Slender Man sounds a little bit because he's this character that demands like murder and blood and like is this creepy thing that lives in the woods and can live in the shadows and can invade your home and like all this other stuff, which sounds a lot like a couple of other myths um like the horned god myth of the character that lives in the woods who is like in charge of all the animals and like all the plants, but also like hunting and death and murder and madness. And it sounded vaguely like a couple of um, Korean ghost stories that I'm familiar with too. It's like Slenderman is just this mishmash of a bunch of different shit that some random internet author put together, 15 years ago. I wonder what it was about Slenderman because we were talking before. It's like David Borowitz. He said his dog told him to kill people. He said his dog was the devil and told him to kill people. But we also know that this person, that Berkowitz, was super duper like smart. So the question is, did he really believe that his dog was telling him to kill people? Or was he just living out some power trip fantasy and part of the lark of it was telling the plebs and convincing them that his dog told him to kill people? Like, did this girl who was clearly like she has a super high IQ too. I remember them saying that she was legit super duper smart. But
Sure.
so many people who suffer from like really intense schizoaffective disorders also do have very high IQs. Did she really believe that this character, this Slender Man character, was telling her to do this? Or
Yeah. I mean, I think that she did, and this is something I mentioned too, and it's interesting that you mentioned about American mythology
Mhm.
because there was a reporter that went to visit, and this was after she had been arrested and locked up for a while, and this reporter mentioned how she said that she had been visiting with like Skeletor and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like she was
Right,
hallucinating seeing these characters, like hanging
right,
out with her and having tea or, coloring in a coloring book with her.
right.
So I think that, she's hallucinating this stuff. And it's funny that she filled in with those sort of fiction characters that became
Yeah,
her friends.
right. Right, because like in other cultures that have a more like firmly established like super fantastical mythology complete with like gods and demigods and spirits and mythical heroes, if that were to happen, like a person would way more likely be like, "Oh, like I drank a bunch of reindeer piss and then went out and had a conversation with Thor or whatever."
Right, right.
And
Or
like
some elves or gnomes or something. Yeah.
right, and like that's I mean that's part of culture, but we don't have that, and a lot of people don't have that, but other cultures still have that background. They still have that anchoring to their weirdness. We're like, that's where we put our weirdness. Put our weirdness over here. We do some ayahuasca about it, and like move on. And Americans just they just don't have that. And what happens is you get 13-year-old girls who think they're having tea with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and plus, P.S. also stab somebody 19 times. So, I mean, that's the problem. That's why people should just do ayahuasca all the time or whatever. Well, not all the time, but at least once. I think it's good for you. Pick a character and stick with it. Also, great crossover stuff there. Skeletor, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, creepy pastas,
Yeah.
Smurfs. I am just smelling a huge comic book situation. 10 years worth of movies at least. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of creepy stuff on the internet. Um I used to think that the Shadow Man, the Hat Man, was
Yeah.
like a product of the internet, and I still have my doubts about it sometimes, because that seems like something like the eventuality of people being able to get together in chat rooms and be like, "This is what my sleep paralysis demon looks like," kind of thing. And I also wonder, like, if you believe at all that reality is a simulation, and there's some quantum mechanical math that backs up this concept, then that means that a lot of our reality is being constantly believed into existence by us. And the more people believe it, um, the realer it is, the more solid it is. So, I sometimes wonder with things like Slender Man, because you said, because there was another Slender Man, not a murder, but an attempted murder
Yeah.
in Idaho or Iowa or one of
Ohio, I
those.
thought. Yeah, something.
Idaho, Ohio, and Iowa are all the same state, and
Right.
they just change hats sometimes. Um, they were afraid for a second that this was going to spawn
Yeah.
a bunch of copycat murders, right?
Yeah, they definitely were. In fact, there were some regions in Waukesha, especially, where they banned, or I don't think it was a ban as far as a law, but a lot of costume stores, Halloween stores, were pulling like Slender Man style costumes off of the
Sure,
shelves just
sure.
because they didn't want to have people buying them and, being inspired
Yeah,
to do something crazy. So there was a
right,
fear that there would be a wave of copycat
right,
murders or attempted murders or violence.
right. Because
Which happened in that Ohio case, but other than that, I'm not aware, at least, of other ones.
yeah, and we were saying that there's so many other more interesting characters, like the guy in Colorado who shot up that theater, like
Aurora,
infamously.
yeah.
He was like, "I am the Joker," and he dyed his hair bright red and was wearing green lipstick or whatever. And there was that guy that stabbed his girlfriend, and he was dressed as the Scream Killer and all this other kind of stuff. And there's
Mhm.
just so many better, like, I don't know, like there's been a real obsession in our culture recently with like Lovecraftian horror. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm very surprised that there's no Cthulhu, like legit cults out there who honestly think that it's the time is nigh and the time is upon us. But the fact of the matter is that the FBI, the last that I read, the FBI believes that at any given time in the United States of America, there are as many as 600 serial killers actively serial killing or killing serially.
Yeah.
They're doing
Yeah.
bad stuff, and they're doing a lot of it, and they're doing it over and over. So there definitely could absolutely be somebody out there, like, doing it Cthulhu style, and I hope he's keeping a vlog because I don't usually go in for serial killers, but I would be interested to know how that works out aesthetically. Not that
Yeah.
interested, like, don't come to my house. I don't You stay over in Idaho or Iowa or Ohio, wherever you are, buddy. Just saying.
Yeah.
They drink blood and stuff and won't go out during suntime hours and, like, believe they are vampires. It's a condition, but, like,
Yeah.
the condition of believing that you were a vampire, did that always exist, or was that something that, like, only happened after vampires were a part of our popular consciousness and awareness? You gotta ask yourself. You gotta ask yourself.
Yeah, a lot of this is very much a cycle between fiction and real life, where people get inspired by the fiction, and
Right.
then a crazy real life story happens, so there's a fiction created based on that,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
all just sorts to blend together. And I mean, I think that's
yeah.
why, like, part of the reason that these girls were inspired by Slender Man is because people, believe what they see on the internet, and
Yeah.
it's become really hard to tell the difference between fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah, definitely, especially for kids, like, the internet is this place where you cannot prove or disprove anything, because no matter where you go, you have to get to your end source and trust that your end source is inviolable, and there's no such thing as an inviolable fact on the internet because all the facts come from some other fact, which is why we have all those conspiracy theorists too. Because
Yeah.
like they look at all, like, the more facts you present them, the less they're inclined to believe them, because they are like, yes, but that's, what do they call it, like like the mainstream, like the cabal, like that's what they want you to believe.
A deep state, right?
That's why these facts are so easily accessible. That's why everyone believes this, because it's it's propaganda, it's a lie, um rather than being like, or because this is our shared reality, and we have all together agreed that the earth is not actually flat. We have
Mhm.
checked it the fuck out, you guys. Like, it's not real.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. I didn't discuss this story with you, but this happened today. Um, uh, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, everyone's favorite pillow entrepreneur. He said today that we will finally see Trump back in office, and he said just August before, but now he specifically says the morning of August 13th, which
Thank God. I
which
was
by
getting
the way happens to be Friday the 13th.
I was so fucking bored. So that's great. That's really, really great. Well, you had posted on the YouTube group, on, if you guys are not already experiencing the joy and wonder that is the Tea's Weird Week Facebook group, you definitely should. You had posted saying, hey, like, what should we do on that particular day? And I was like, well, there's a couple of national holidays that happen on that day. One of the national holidays that happens on that day is the National Left-Handed, like the day for left-handed people. So
All
that's
right.
kind of cool and neat. But also, and this is my favorite, it's also August 13th is National Blame Someone Else Day,
Nice.
which
Perfect.
I think is perfect.
Yeah.
I'd love to celebrate National Blame Someone Else Day. I'm going to take all the things that I know for a fact are my fault, and I'm going to put them all into a sack, and I'm going to mail them to the White House. And I want Donnie to read them out loud and blame, like, I don't know, Horshack, somebody other than me for all of them. And he'll be the president, so it'll be real, because
Right.
everything the president says is true.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be back.
What a fucking joker. Didn't he just do like a big rally or something where like all kinds of, like, he just said all
He's
kinds of
been doing
fucking
like a
weird shit?
tour, like a mini tour where he goes like from podunk town to podunk town and like has like this motley assembly of different right-wing media figures and politicians,
Right.
and they all just like rant and rave about how the election was stolen and how
Dude, like,
Trump's going to be back.
it's weird because all those people, all those talking heads, they all look the same, they all sound the same. And when you see footage of one of those Trump rallies, it almost seems like they're like the chorus in a Greek tragedy. Like these, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stereotypical background characters just like narrating. Jesus Christ. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I
It's
can't
something
wait
else.
for this to be 20 years from now so that we can
Yeah.
have a blockbuster movie about it in which Donald Trump is played by the somehow still rockin' Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
I can't fucking wait. Okay, cool. Well, speaking of podunk towns,
Yeah.
oh man, you guys, I love this shit so much. So you may have heard T and I discussing at several different points the fact that we are taking this show on the road. We are going up to Dundee, Wisconsin on the 17th, which is not this Saturday.
Yeah,
Ne-
next
next.
weekend. Next
So
weekend. Yeah.
excited. Please ask us about the Tiki Getaway. We're going there because they have every year and have had every year for 30 freaking years. Longer than that, they've been doing it since 1988. They have the Dundee UFO Days, which is put on by Bill Benson, who owns a little place called Benson's Hideaway, which is, he claims, the only UFO themed bar in the state of Wisconsin. There are posters
Okay.
on the wall and little plastic, little green men's straws in all the drinks. And apparently, a large jar filled with formaldehyde, and what Bill says is, in fact, an alien spaceman from outer space gifted to him by someone who got it in Area 51. I don't know
Nice.
if there was a gift shop or I'm not sure. Maybe it was that Lazar character.
All right, he smuggled it out just so he could bring it to Benson's hideaway.
I mean, if you're gonna hide something, you should put
Yeah.
it in plain sight, 100%. Um, it turns out that there's actually 3 towns in Wisconsin,
Yeah, this is
which
what I love about the story is that there's 3 towns all making a claim to be the UFO capital of Wisconsin.
okay, so we talked about Dundee. What are the other 2?
Elmwood, Wisconsin, and Belleville, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Both have um, not the exact same style, but a celebration of some sort
Yeah.
on a UFO day.
Yeah.
And like Benson's, very much based on the fact that these towns had either a famous sighting or a string of sightings.
Sure.
Like Elmwood, I'm gonna look here. So I wrote this book that came out last year, Wisconsin Legends and Lore. And I mentioned these 3 UFO capitals of Wisconsin.
I'd like
And
to point out, you guys, that T like essentially forgot that he had also written this book
oh yeah,
last year. And he was like, "Oh right, I totally wrote this other book last year. Forgot about that." Because that's
yeah.
just how T rolls.
So from what I read, Elmwood is actually the one with the oldest tradition of this. Theirs
Okay.
dates back to 1978.
Oh,
After they had this sort of wave of sightings from about 1974 to 78.
sure.
Um, and so, they do a little celebration of that. And they have a sign on County Road S that makes a note of these historical UFO sightings.
Yeah.
So they do have an actual tribute there.
So you can't miss it. You can't hardly miss it in Elmwood. It's right up there. And what was that the town that I found out so much cool shit about UFOs in Wisconsin today. You guys don't even
Yeah.
know. Because MUFON, right, which
Yeah.
is the largest UFO research organization, I think in the world even, isn't it? Like the world? Like
MUFON is, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, was actually founded in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
and this isn't even, they've never made a claim. I think they should make a claim that they were the 4th UFO capital in Wisconsin,
right.
because I think that's even more historically significant than some of these other towns' claims. Don't tell them
Yeah.
that. Don't tell them that.
No, totally.
But
But like, yeah.
but this happened in Sturgeon Bay. So I'm just going to read a short paragraph from my book. Sturgeon Bay, that's where Jim and Coral Lorenzen founded the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization back in 1952.
That's crazy.
The Lorenzens were inspired after they, along with several others, sighted a UFO in the sky above Sturgeon Bay, which they
Yeah.
approximated to be 800 feet in diameter.
Holy shit.
Many other UFO sightings have been reported around Door County over the years. And then after the Lorenzens died in the 1980s, that's when members of their group pretty much just switched the name to Mutual UFO Network, and it grew into the huge organization that is today. So it really got, the roots of it, at least, are from Sturgeon Bay in the 1950s.
Right. And like it's the reason that MUFON is the biggest organization like that it is right now is that this person was the first person to make studying this as though on the assumption that these things were real and that they were not just an easily explainable mundane phenomena and that we needed to use science to figure out what they were. And that at the time, apparently the original sighting I read was in 1938. So they didn't start the organization until 52, but the original sighting that they had was in 1938. Up until that point, to make a serious study of little green men, like you wouldn't have done that. And the fact that they were so determined and serious about it to keep it up for that long is just amazing to me. I want a statue of this woman. in
Right.
some amazing.
And they, one of the things their organization did too was they had a newsletter. So this newsletter was really one of the first publications that, wrote about UFO
Wow.
sightings in a serious way. So,
Wow. That's so
yeah.
cool. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of us. I'm
Right.
so good job. Good job, Wisconsin. Go Bucky. The place that we're going to is not none of those places. The place we're going to
Yeah.
is Dundee.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't know as much about Dundee as there was to know until today, actually. So Bill Benson, okay, Bill Benson is this dude who apparently he started this UFO themed bar and this UFO festival because he had his whole life had seen UFOs. When he was a kid, there was crop circles like right up the street from his family farm, which at the time turns out that wasn't a thing. Like crop circles as a phenomenon didn't
Yeah.
really become a thing until like the 70s. Am I mistaken there? Like I think my timeline
Yeah.
is right there.
I would say even later than that, maybe more like
Yeah.
the 80s.
Right. So he claims he went out there fucking Field of Dreams style or whatever, and there was like these crop circles that he didn't know where they came from, didn't understand what they were about. He went to, yes, crops are Shane. Yes. Here's the thing. This is crazy. I just met you, but call me maybe. Is that there's lots of reports of crop circles in Wisconsin, and the reports of crop circles in Wisconsin predate the crop circle craze by 30 years. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of fucking crops in Wisconsin that some of them were bound to get circles in them. Like, I mean, like that's just gonna happen. But yeah, totally. So he found these crop circles. He went off to Vietnam, and while he was in Vietnam, he saw what he claimed was this very indisputably a UFO. He came back here, and there was another instance with crop circles, and then there was a situation that happened in 1985 where he and a neighbor both witnessed this massive thing that was as big as a football field hanging out in the sky that scared all the cows out of his neighbor's barn and into the field. And his one neighbor saw it from the car, and he saw it from the field. And after that, he was like, I was going to open a bar, but now I think probably it's got to be a UFO themed bar. And he's given all kinds of talks. He does a lot of UFO, like actual research. I mean, it's got to be hard to be taken serious as a UFO researcher when you're also a dude who has a like pickle jar full of
Right.
alien.
Yeah.
I like that about Bill, though. I like his duality. I think that's really good. My favorite thing is that he does this with his buddy, UFO Bob, who is also a UFO researcher and who hopefully will also be at Dundee UFO Days this year because I want to talk to him so much. UFO Bob claims to be in constant telepathic communication with an alien from, hold on. I want to get this right. I don't want to offend any aliens, you guys. I'm not trying to be that person. He's
uh,
he claims to be in constant communication with this female alien from I want to say it's a star in the Pleiades, who apparently this alien does like to like completely without any jest or sarcasm comes to Wisconsin specifically because she does enjoy taking in a Packers game every once in a while.
of course.
Here's what I love about this, okay? Let's start from the top. Could we like find a SETI scientist and talk to them about radio frequencies coming from deep space? Yes, I'm sure that we could. I'm sure that we could pull some strings and make that happen. Could we talk to astrophysicists and astronomers? Yes, totally, absolutely, 100%. Here's what I think, though. I think that if there are aliens and they are visiting our planet, they're not talking to those people. They're 100% in the fucking backwoods talking to UFO Bob. They're 100% like, what is this, football? Mwah. That's the kind of aliens I believe in, like Paul from the movie Paul, where like they're smart enough to like look at cultures and figure them out. And if they indeed have been wandering amongst us all this time, they know what a football game is. They know what a Friday fish fry is. They know that shit is good. They're here in Dundee. Like, I believe that. Shane says, if you want to get us, this is how we get gotten. They want to see the pack. I
Take
mean,
us to your Packers.
to be fair, I mean, if you were an alien species, like, they don't necessarily want to make like all kinds of like, I think politics and borders and all that, those are all things we invented. Maybe
Mm.
they're not at all interested in having any sort of diplomatic relationships with us. Why would they bother? We're just a bunch of dirty ass monkeys in this backwater planet. They would come down for the fucking Packer game because of course they would. That's totally 100% what they would do. Um, I'm not going to discredit this at all because in the end it'll be UFO Bob who has the last laugh. I absolutely guarantee you. One of the things I really like about this story too is it's got that nice like something walks behind the corn sort of thing, because it's not just that this one thing happened in 1985. Hello, yeah, all sentients everywhere are just sentients doing sentient shit. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That would be the title of my thesis, and then I would just throw the papers up in the air and I'd fucking walk away. Um, is that it's said that it's not just that there was this random UFO that happened over Long Lake and they like it for some reason and they keep coming back to Long Lake because they do keep coming back to Long Lake. UFO Fest has been happening for 30 years. And over the
Yeah.
course of this 30 years of UFO Fest, there is video footage from at least 6 different UFO Fests the night of the festival where everybody was out there being like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? Oh, they got their
If
old
a
fashioned.
yeah, and a UFO shows up.
And they fucking recorded it, and I'm like, oh my, like
Mm.
you have no choice but to be like, okay, that is quite odd. And I'm not talking like now when you can buy like a drone at Toys R Us. I mean like back in the 80s and shit when that stuff was hard to fake
Yeah.
people. So they do keep coming back, but they say that they keep coming back because of Dundee Mountain, which isn't a proper mountain. It's a cairn, a cairn. It's a hill that was pushed up by the glaciers coming through, which is all the driftless area is. The driftless area is just a big chunk of land that got all crazy fucked up when the glaciers came through
From the Ice
uh,
Age, yeah.
from the Ice Age, right? And allegedly, I have not verified this information. Anytime anything creepy happens and white people want to validate it, they're like, the Indians done said that this was, the Indians said it, like,
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
like Pet Cemetery style, and
Right.
say, I want
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. Adds a
he,
little bit more mystique to it, maybe.
right, right. Bill claims that the indigenous peoples there, and I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not sure what the tribes are that traditionally lay claim to the Cattle Moraines, but um, that they called it Spirit Mountain. And
Hmm.
Bill believes that the reason that all these weird things happen here is because there's something under the mountain, which is just really, it rolls off the tongue. Like it could
So,
be anything.
yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, what? Like a UFO base? Is that what he's saying?
UFO base, portal to another world, portal
Okay.
to the hollow earth,
Hmm.
trans-dimensional situations, fucking Zorth kicking it with Evada or whatever. Like, just that's where you do telepathic shit and to mess with the monkeys. I don't know. But here's the thing that I do love very much about Wisconsin. Wisconsin is very unique geographically. Like, have you heard of the Wonder Spot ever? Is that a thing you're familiar with?
I
The
know it is.
Wonder
I
Spot?
haven't been there.
I've never been to the Wonder Spot either. The Wonder Spot is this terribly deep hole in the ground, and they're not entirely sure how deep the hole is. But they warn you not to come there if you go to pacemaker, cameras malfunction, watches, clocks. People get dizzy and nauseous and pass out because there's a tremendously high amount of magnetism there. But it isn't necessarily because it's a hole to the center of the earth or another dimension, although, again, I've not been, so I don't know. It's probably because Wisconsin's water table is composed almost entirely of granite and limestone, and it's absolutely peppered with underground rivers because limestone is very porous and it's eaten away very easily by flowing water. The thing about granite is that granite holds a charge, and if you run cold water under a metallic substance all the time over and over again, you end up creating an electric charge, or depending on where you are, an electromagnetic charge. That doesn't happen everywhere in the world. As a result, oh my God, this is a whole fucking crazy conspiracy theory that I have. I should have really prepared you for it.
Hmm.
I have visual aids. Don't panic. Um, there's a whole thing with magnetism and ley lines and strange weirdness that specifically has to do with Wisconsin because of its unique and bizarre geology. The end. So maybe there really is something under Dundee Mountain. Maybe there's a weird electrical charge that's happening because an underground river is like a bell all the way up into space. Who fucking knows?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, again, what we're talking about is UFO Days, which is happening July 17th, coming up. That's in Dundee, Wisconsin, at Benson's Hideaway is the name of the bar. You should totally go if you
Yeah, you
want to make
should.
a day trip out there. We're going to be hanging out, hopefully talking to UFO experiencers while enjoying some Wisconsin staples like beers and brats. Beers and brats and extraterrestrials is what that's going to be about.
Yeah, if you wanna chip in $5, if the aliens come down, I'll give them your name and address so that you can be the next person on the first bus out of here. Fuck you, Jeff Bezos.
Nice. Okay, that's going to be quite an experience. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
The only thing I can think of to compare this to, when I was in Nevada, I visited a bar that was called, this is my favorite bar name of all time, the Little Ale Inn.
I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, it's right by Area 51,
That's
and this
awesome.
was a alien themed bar and diner. So this looks like the
Oh,
Wisconsin Northwoods version of the Little Alien. I'm very
that's
excited
so
to check it
fucking
out.
cool. I can't wait. I really, really hope that they have like, because there's a fish fry there on Friday night, and I hope it's
Yeah,
alien themed. I hope the fish is green. I hope the tartar sauce comes from Andarius 4. Can't wait. Love, love, love it. Mostly I'm looking forward to alien themed breakfast though. You know what I
yeah.
mean? I want like gray alien head shaped pancakes with big
Pancakes,
chocolate
yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
Or like a waffle, but there's like little silver UFO like jimmies on it or something. I don't know. I'm very excited though. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Okay, I think we got time for one more short story. And this is a weird art story, I guess. So this made news earlier this month or last month, I guess. Italian artist Salvatore Garau, I think is how you say his name. He
Yeah, I think so.
sold an invisible sculpture for $18,000. But that riled up an artist
uh,
from Florida. Oh, good, I still have the banner up.
yeah, you do.
An artist from Florida said, "Hey, wait a minute! I made a sculpture called Nothing that was invisible. This sculpture was installed in the Bo Diddley Community Plaza in Florida. I forget the name of the city in Florida. I think it was Gainesville, but I'm not sure.
I think it was Gainesville.
Um, but he built this sculpture by actually having a team mime that they were creating this sculpture in
Yeah,
Bo Diddley Community Plaza.
right.
So he actually, this Florida guy, hired an Italian lawyer, and this lawyer says that Mr. Miller clearly deserves to have his work recognized and to enjoy all the rights and benefits that such recognition brings. Is the basis for their potential lawsuit against this Italian artist.
Sure, sure. I mean, fair, I guess. I actually think that the original guy sounds like he did a way better job. Like he put some theater into it. He did some stuff, but the whole point was, I don't know, I hope that the other guy, the guru, at least because somebody handed him $18,000.
Yeah,
Somebody handed him $18,000. How did that go? Did he just show up and was like, "Here's $18,000," and he was like, "Thank you very much." He was like, "You're welcome. Have a nice day."
he's
Change
like,
room visit.
here you go.
Did he at least show up with a giant wooden crate marked Fragile and like, crack it open and like make a big production of bringing it in? I hope he did something for that $18,000. but it sounds like the other guy did a better job, and he wants recognition for doing a better job of it, and I think that's fair. I mean, abstract art is like performance art is that's what it is. It's a performance. You're paying somebody for making this statement. Like who was it? Why can't I remember? It was the guy who famously put a toilet into like a an art show, and like it
Yeah.
was people were like, oh, that's scandalous, and oh, it doesn't mean anything, it's just scandalous for the sake of being scandalous, but he was making a commentary about the world of fine art. Just the way that like the dozen artists also referenced in this article going back to the 1950s have been like, here's my art, and there was literally nothing there. The architecture of air was one of the titles of the thing, and I'm like, oh, how very, like it's clever. I'm like 2 points for being super clever or whatever. Just give the Florida guy his due. Just Guru, just be like, yes, I was absolutely inspired by Marcel Marceau.
Yeah,
And
I actually I want to see this trial. I want to see them
right.
presenting evidence for the court.
The
Like
Florida guy,
here's my invisible sculpture. As you can see, it looks exactly like this other person's invisible sculpture.
right. And the Florida guy was very tongue in cheek about it. He was like, and he said, nothing is very important to me. I have pioneered nothing and I own the rights to nothing. Like he was playing the theme. I feel like the other guy was just cashing in because he hasn't said anything. So unless he shows up on an invisible carriage drawn by invisible horses, I'm with Florida man. I don't say that frequently, but I am.
Here, Shane, this is my thoughts exactly. He says, God, why didn't I think of that? That's right. I think we need to enter into the art, the invisible art business.
T, anytime you want to pull an elaborate art fraud / performance piece, all you have to do is call me, bitch. I will be there in 5 minutes. I'll be like, I have spray paint and a Mickey Mouse suit. Let's do this shit. Shane, you're like our silent partner. You're like our other anchor. Shane just pops up from time to time. It's like, I've been to Dundee. It's fantastic. Have the mashed potatoes. Okay, well, I feel like that was pretty weird. I feel like we did justice to all those stories. I feel like we did a real fine job, real fine job.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all we got for this week. I hope everyone's doing well, staying cool during this incredibly hot uh, summer week. And we're going to be back with some more weird stories for you next week. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.